I'm going to just tell you that, Tony, this is the best crowd we've ever had for a speaker's night. Seriously, we've never, for one of our speakers, we've never had a crowd like this. And it's my pleasure to welcome y'all to the Thursday night meeting of the Trinity Tower Surf Club. We're tickled to death that you're all able to be here. I can't introduce Tony. I mean, you guys know him so much better than I do. I mean, I'm at the age where Tony was a god when I was growing up, coming down from San Antonio. So I haven't had a chance to know the real Tony. But I do want to say one thing. Lacey, Keith, and Gavin, will y'all just come up here for just a second? Just get up close. Tony reminded me of this by bringing stuff from Inland Surf Park for these guys, but I always get to do the fun stuff and introduce these people and take credit for everything and then walk away. And the people who really do the work around here are Lacey, Gavin, and Keith, and they set it up, and I guarantee you most of you people have wetsuits that are older than they are. So now get out of here. Tony brought them Inland Surf Park passes, which is a very cool, very generous thing to do. So that's it, guys. Tony Mierzwa, as far as I know, he was one of the pioneers down here, and certainly a major, a major influence in the reason why we all get to do what we love. I'm gonna quit being serious, Tony Mierzwa.
Hey, listen, Brad Lomax, we wouldn't even be here without him. How about it? Brad Lomax right there. Brad Lomax, thank you. Let me tell you about this guy over here on keyboards. The very first time I ever met him, I'm traveling to the beach, going out to Port Aransas, and I see these two guys on the side of the road hitchhiking with surfboards. I pick him up, and that's the first time we ever met. We've been friends ever since. Pat Judd. So, okay, I even made notes for this thing. Unbelievable. I bet you I know 85% of you people out there in the audience. So let's take a break for a minute and just introduce yourself to somebody you don't know, for about 10 seconds, just like they do in church. I know you, blah, 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 blah. Oh, by the way, right there standing by that surfboard is Mr. Dan Parker, one of the book guys that put together the surfing in Port Aransas, Corpus Christi. Thank you, Dan. Okay, I do have a limited vocabulary, and I would like to pre-apologize for any foul language that might be coming forth. But I was in the military for a couple of years, and we didn't throw stuff in the trash. We actually shit canned it, you know. So anyway, here we are. We're all here together. I was born right here at Spahn Hospital, and we're traveling through the Milky Way together here on Life Raft Earth. It's a water planet. What do we got? 70% H2O, 70% salt water on this planet. So here I am in my embryonic state, and I notice I'm surrounded by all this salt water. And then all of a sudden I take my first breath over there at Spahn Hospital, and I'm made up of 70% salt water across from a bay that is full of salt water that flows into the Gulf of Mexico and beyond, all salt water. There's something to us being 70% salt water and this planet being made up of 70% salt water. Who knows? And I had some influences that make me comfortable around the ocean. And the first big influence I had was my grandmother, and we called her Me Mama. And she took me fishing everywhere. Ingleside, Humboldt Channel, Intercoastal, Packery Channel, La Quintana by Reynolds, Rockport, Port Aransas where they bite every day. You know, all these different places. So I was comfortable around saltwater. I had two uncles. One was Ben Herndon, and he operated a speedboat. The sportsman that was a Nueces Bay fishing boat, and he ran the Gulf Clipper. So I was got a little salt off of him as well. And then I had my favorite uncle, Chris Winger, and he loved sailing. And one time he was standing on the L head and he saw this beautiful boat that was coming out, and this guy couldn't get it between the L head and the T head out into the Gulf. So the guy tried it a second time to do it. He still couldn't do it. So my Uncle Chris started going, "You stupid son of a bitch. What's the matter with you? Can't you sail that thing? Bring that thing over here, I'll sail it." The third time he said, "Okay, get on here and sail it out." The guy turned out, Uncle Chris got on it, sailed right out the L head and T head, went out through the breakwater, out to the Nueces Bay. That guy turned out to be, now I can't remember his name. What's his name? Oscar Wyatt, that owns Gulf Oil. And is a serendipity sailboat still here in our harbor, or is it gone? Gone. Well, anyway, he brought it back from New England during going all the back roads. But those were my influences for saltwater. Now let's give the very first person that ever really we think of for the pioneer surfing in Texas was really two guys, a Galveston lifeguard champion by the name of Leroy Colombo. Am I right so far, John Olvey? Okay, thank you. And Doc Israel Pasowitz. Now this is back in the late 1920s and early 1930s. Now you're really not going to turn the world on to surfing, but if you're the first and you're on a 75-pound redwood surfboard in Galveston, that's quite an amazing feat. Now one of the things here at the Texas Surf Museum that really blows my mind is that red surfboard at the very beginning that's made out of plywood that was made by a guy I used to buy lighting fixtures from over here at B&L Guest Lighting, BL Chip Guess. And he went out surfing. He only used it a couple of times, and he told me, he said, "You know what, there was nobody out there with me. It was just kind of boring, you know." But if you can think of somebody going out there in 1950 to go surfing by yourself, that's quite a feat. And Bob Hall Pier was dedicated back in 1950, and it slowly got to be 400 foot long, that and Horace Caldwell both. Now you think about a pier being 400 foot long, that's a quarter of a mile at least, and it had 3 T's on it. And went 1,400. What did I say? 400. Thank you very much, Bob. I do stand corrected this one time. He's exactly right, 1,400, quarter of a mile, and it had 3 T's. Now when you got on that wooden pier and the waves were happening and had strength, you could feel that wooden pier vibrate and shudder. There were certain points you could go on that pier, you could just feel that, and it was a different thing. If you remember the old 3T'd Bob Hall Pier, at the very end, on the south side of that T, was called the Tarpon Hole. You know, Port Aransas was called Tarpon before it was Port Aransas, so we had an awful lot of tarpon in the area here, and people would be fishing at that little T, and they'd have like maybe 25 fishermen, and they'd have a mullet hooked through the eye with a big float here, and then all of a sudden a guy would get a strike down, and all the other guys would take their lines out of the water, and this guy would fight this big Silver King tarpon. If you ever were there at night when they caught a tarpon, it was magic. The lights flashing off that thing, the silver scales, it was just beautiful. Then all of a sudden the line would go dead, and half the tarpon would be brought up, and a shark would have taken half of it, you know. The shark fishermen would go out at the end of the pier, and they'd lay their lines back and forth on that T, back and forth. Have about 8 lines here, and then they'd swing it over their head and throw it out into the water. I mean, you know, we're not talking about a shrimp for a bait. We're talking about something about the size of my arm for bait with a gigantic hook in it. Well, I went to school with a guy by the name of John Hensley that was a heavyweight shark fisherman, and he would get an inner tube, and he would loop the bait over the inner tube, and he would paddle it out for the shark fishermen. A couple of times when he's paddling it out, whoop, the inner tube would go underwater for something going on it. I just can't imagine what that must feel like when you're out there all of a sudden treading water, the inner tube is gone. And in 1968, Bob Hall Pier, I was in Vietnam during that time, but in 1968 at Bob Hall Pier, they caught a record that still holds today. It was a tiger shark that was 12 foot, 4 inches long, 900 pounds at Bob Hall Pier. This is during the height of surfing, if you can imagine. Then the hurricanes tore up the pier, and in 1983, there was a concrete pier. So let's go to Mr. Cecil Laws. Mr. Cecil Laws, you know, we had these guys like Pasowitz and Guess and them, single people, you know, basically surfing on one surfboard. You're not turning on the community to surfboards. Well, Cecil Laws, with his family, went over to Hawaii, and he's at Waikiki, and he's going, you know, these waves here are about the size of the waves down in Texas. You know, I'm going to get 9 surfboards and bring them back. And this is 1962. So this was right during that cultural moment when you were there. I mean, you had the Gidget movies, you had the beach party movies, the beach blanket bingo movies, Ride the Wild Surf. You had the Beach Boys doing the surfing thing, was just all coming together. We had all the fly boys that we were training out at the Naval Air Station to go get ready to go fight in Vietnam. And Cecil Laws got 9 surfboards that brought back to the Texas coast. And Larry started renting those in 1962, late in that summer. And me and my girlfriend went out to the beach. Remember, I'm just a punk in junior in high school. And I go out to the beach and saw Larry. And he said, hey, man, would you watch my stand for a minute? I want to get a hamburger. And I watched his stand. And then when he came back, used a surfboard. I mean, you know, we're catching these little ankle snappers. But that's all it took. You were just hooked, you know. It just happens to you. It's the only sport where the planet moves you. You guys know what it feels like, man. It's a wonderful thing. So Mr. Laws, Cecil ordered another 9 surfboards. And I ran one stand and Larry ran another stand. Now I want you to think, before you ordered that other 9 surfboards, think about South Texas trying to play baseball with 9 baseball gloves. So all of a sudden you just got 9 surfboards here. Then all of a sudden you double it. We had all the jet jockeys from the Naval Air Station waiting to rent these boards. People were lined up to do it. Larry was making money hand over fist. And pretty soon all the different real things happened a little bit further. I mean, where's Larry Haas? Where are you, Larry? Back there. He had a rental out at the beach, the Laguna Tick Surf Shop. I mean, the Laguna Shore Surf Shop. And Larry, when he started this thing, he was only 16 years old. So we're renting boards for Larry one day, and Doc Jones shows up. Now, when Larry went to Hawaii, he also went with a guy by the name of Jay Wilkie. And Jay Wilkie was exposed to this as well. And Jay Wilkie ordered a couple of surfboards. I remember driving by Copeland's and looking at those Keokes and the Royal Hawaiian, maybe a Dexter, and just going, God, this is the greatest thing, man. And you couldn't afford it, but you drive by and check them out, you know? And Larry, in all the boards that he had one Belsey surfboard that everybody liked to use just because it was that far advanced. Well, this Malibu that Doc got from Jay Wilkie it had like an arrowhead red shape on the front of it. It was just magic, man. So we decided to close up the shop, the rental stand at Bob Hall, and we were going to Port Aransas. Well, you got to remember, there are no car racks. They do not exist. So we put the Malibu in the back of the trunk. We put the 2 rent boards to the side of the 56 Chevrolet, and we took off down the Skiddy Road going to Port Aransas, the 18-mile stretch. And anytime a car would come by, we'd just have to go on the shoulder because it was just like airplane wings sticking out of the car, you know. We finally get there to Horace Caldwell. Well, of course, there's nobody out. There's nobody there. It's us. And the waves are lined up, and it's those long board sliders, you know, just right after the other. And so all 3 of us paddle out. For about the first 7 to 10 waves, the fishermen and fisherwomen would applaud. It was magical. Of course, 6 months after that, they're throwing weights at you, as you well know. Now, one of the great surfers that was with us at that time was a gentleman by the name of John White. And he made his own surfboard way back then. And we started, skateboards came out. We wanted to skateboard. I mean, these are skateboards in its infancy. Skateboards that barely had neoprene wheels, you know, just above that. The trucks and everything were terrible. You know, this 5-story parking garage that was just torn down right across the street over here? Well, on a Sunday, we went up to the parking garage. John White, Larry Laws, me, and maybe Ed Bounds, Dwayne Catch, maybe Jimmy Den. And we came down the first time. All you could do was just a little bit of speed, maybe a 180, a wheelie, you know. It wasn't all this wild stuff they're doing now. We come down, yeah, man, stoked. We'd run back up there and get ready to do another. Now we're coming down. We go around and around. Boom. Who's at the bottom of the hill? 2 Corpus Christi police cruisers waiting for us. They pick us up for trespassing. Yeah. And they take us to jail for trespassing. Well, John White's dad was a big-time corporate lawyer, and he was in there. You could see him through some glass doors or whatever it is, and these detectives are kind of looking us over and said, "Well, boys, you know, this is trespassing. It could be some rough trouble for you. By the way, any of you guys ever been in jail before?" Nobody raised their hand except me. I raised my hand and he comes, "Oh yeah, well, what have you been in jail for?" And I said, "Well, I was here with the Cub Scouts." And the detectives started laughing and they just blew everything off, and we were able to walk on that one. Now, the very first surf contest that I remember that was held was in 1963, and it was put on by Philip Albright's older brother, his middle brother named Skipper Albright. And this was during the days when they used to have the Padre Island Walkathon. Time out. To y'all, thank you for listening. And so they had the Walkathon, they had Mr. Padre Island Muscle Beach thing, they had a Miss Padre Island thing. Big Joe Salem pulled the bus with his teeth, back then. And so we formed a little surf club called South Wind Surf Club. And John White was big into that. We were so into the surfing back there, we even made a winner's standing thing like the Olympics where it's first, second, and third, that you'll see a picture in Dan's book where we're all standing in there after the contest is over. But Skipper was announcing the contest, so all of a sudden all these cars show up. And it was really the first gathering of the tribes. You gotta remember, Duke Kahanamoku brought surfing to the East Coast, the West Coast, Australia. By the way, Bing Copeland brought surfing to New Zealand, no charge for that information. And we had to learn on our own. That's all we could do, was just learn on our own. So when we had a surf contest, it was really a learning experience. It was a gathering of the tribes. So these Houston guys showed up and they had the contest going on. Jim Rawlinson won that contest and John White came in third, if I remember. But it was a very enlightening experience. It taught you an awful lot about surfing because that's all you were able to see were these other people surfing, but when they were in your neighborhood, it was a good thing. So now I'm going off my first year in college and go to Blinn Junior College in Brenham, Texas, Bluebonnet capital of the world. And just to show you how times have changed, when I went to Blinn Junior College, it was all white. You got to remember, Cam Newton went there and he won the Heitzman Trophy not too long ago when he played for Auburn. So when I come back, Tom Harper and his dad, Commander Marvin Harper, have opened up a sporting goods store over on Alameda Airline in the Meadowbrook Shopping Center. And so Tom and me used to run around together, and he was kind of like a hot rod guy. And so I kept talking to Tom. I said, "Man, let's see if we can get surfboards in there." So his dad went for it. And we ordered 2 surfboards, Gordy and Hanson. And we got these Hanson surfboards in there. And I had one day, Mike Gallagher came in and he ordered a custom-made Hanson surfboard, yellow panels on the side. It looked like a black Marks-a-Lot that just went like that down the middle. Beautiful Hanson surfboard, at least 9 foot, 10 foot long. He bought it, picked it up on a Friday, and I said, "Well, you going surfing tomorrow?" And Mike said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I am too. I'll meet you at Port Aransas." So Saturday comes along, I go to Port Aransas and I look out and there's Mike out there riding. I went, "Boy, he must have cut his feet. He's got a shoe. No, he's got 2 shoes on. He must have cut both feet, you know?" And so he wipes out, he loses his board. I go over and pick up his surfboard. Not a bit of wax on it, none whatsoever. He loved that board so much he wasn't going to put wax on it, and he was surfing in tennis shoes. Now during this time, Pat McGee and Jane Bryson put a little rental stand together in Port Aransas called Bartholomew's. Now one little thing about Jane Bryson, she was in South Wind, and when she got her Hobie surfboard in, she told me that she slept on it for a week straight in her living room. She was so stoked about getting that new surfboard. So we got some surfboards in and they started doing pretty good. So Marvin Harper decided to go ahead and put a rental stand over in Port Aransas. And we went to Custer's last stand and had a little building there. And we started renting surfboards and we were doing real good. Well, after about 6 weeks, it was Robert's last Custer's stand. They said, hey, we want you out of here. And they opened up their own surf shop in exactly the spot that we were at. Well, Commander Harper didn't take to that too very well. He just went right across the street and opened up triple time bigger than them, and we did real good business right there across from Custer's last stand. One thing he also put together, Commander Harper did, is he took a shuttle at 7 o'clock in the morning, a bus shuttle, and he would take these surfers out there. If you weren't there at 7, you weren't making it, and he would drop you back off at Meadowbrook Shopping Center at 7. And a lot of people had the first chance to get a lot of surfing done. In fact, at the tail end of school, there were a bunch of punks that used to come by from Cullen. That's one of them right there behind the camera, Jimmy Cuttis. And so the Shirt Shack was going well. We had the bus shuttle. Commander Harper sponsored the Coastal Bend Surfing Association. He was a good thing for surfing. So in 1962, I went out to my aunt and uncle's house, my uncle works in Carlsbad. They lived in Fallbrook, California, which is right there in North County outside of Oceanside, California. And it was my first time that I went surfing on the West Coast. The water was so cold, but we went to a place called Grandview Street. There were some people that were next to my uncle's house that were going surfing. Just, surfboards had no fins on them. It was all skegs, The fins were non-existent at this time. I remember I froze to death, but I was exposed to the West Coast surfing scene, and it was a Grandview Street where there was nothing, no buildings, nothing. If you go there now, it's total, you know how every place is now. It's construction, it's all lost. Well, I went by Surfboards Hawaii and ordered and I sure hoped it would float me, a 10-2 Surfboards Hawaii from John Price, and I asked about getting a dealership from him. And he wasn't that interested, so we just let that slide, and I got that surfboard. So I went back out there to the West Coast in 1963, and I went by and talked to John Trice again and asked him about a dealership, and he was kind of hem-hawing, So I came back to Corpus, I sent him a letter, said I would really like to do this shop, So in October, out of the clear blue, him and his wife show up at the Holiday Inn in Emerald Cove and say, hey, Tony, I'm in town. Why don't you come on down and see me? Oh, yeah? So Brent Flower, me and him were talking about putting together down south. And so we went to visit him, and he just came down to check to see if I would represent Surfboards Hawaii pretty good. We just really hit it off. He was a good guy. And so I decided to open up a store with Brent. And so we started collecting gear from that we were going to sell. 3 big surfboards, 3 Surfboards Hawaii, base standards car racks, maybe some Sundex surfwear. Wax? They didn't have wax. It was paraffin. Give me a break. They didn't have surf wax. It was Mama's gel paraffin that would melt in the summer and get too cold in the winter. And we started storing them in there, so went out and started hunting for a place to rent. And every place I went to, well, what are you going to open up here? And I said, well, I'm going to open up a surf shop. And everybody would go, well, where are you going to surf? And I'd go, well, out in the Gulf Coast. Well, you can't surf in Texas. Every single place did that. So I finally learned the trick that I was going to go ahead and say that I'm opening up a water sports store, and that was a little bit easier to approach to these landlords. So I went over by Joe Salem, and he had a big glass booth that he had an office in. He said, well, I'll move out of here and you can have this glass booth. He was the best thing. He gave me a cash register to use. He gave me some fixtures, and boom. Without a warning, what we did is there was an ad on one of the Surfboards Hawaii's in here, and it said, it had a picture of a Dick Brewer gun, and it said, you wouldn't go hunting elephants with a BB gun, would you? And you saw this beautiful full gun surfboard here. That's how Brent and me started promoing Surfboards Hawaii. You know, what kind of board would you get? Oh man, I'd get a Surfboards Hawaii. How perfect. Surfboards in Hawaii. How perfect, you know. And so, boom, Joe Salem had my place. We opened up just overnight, not letting anybody know a store was opening. We were just there. And anytime surfboards would come in, we'd get those cardboard boxes. They'd come in and stack out front, so people would know you got a new quiver of surfboards in it. Everybody would come by and check them out. Well, you know, I'm a young punk back then, and there were several times it was Saturday night. Let's go get the evening glass. Okay, man, let's go. Boom. And I'd go off to go get some surf. Come back Monday morning, my keys would still be in the front door after leaving them there Saturday. Just a foolish play for me. I couldn't vote yet. What? They don't expect me to have a mind yet. So here I am. I open up the store, and now we're in February. Cold northern blowing. Nobody. Windy, rainy, nothing. I sold one Surfer magazine for 75 cents. And remember, they were bi-monthly, and I knew this wasn't going to work out, you know. So I wonder if I did the right thing. So as time went down and we started getting closer to summer, we started putting together I have one story I'd like to tell you about. Is there was a surfing club that was formed in 1964 when I was off to Blinn. It was called the Island Surf Club. Now I'm going to have my little scrapbook here, but you can look in it. They have a constitution. Bob LaBera, the Becks, Bruce Stevens, all these guys, they have their constitution and all this stuff. And number 6, it says, must attend school at least once a week. On this thing. I mean, if you can imagine, you know. Thank God I was in Blinn, or I'd have been right in the midst of that. So now we put together Kanaka. Kanaka was the best thing that happened. You got to remember, these leashes did not exist. It was the buddy system, you know, and you formed bonds with these people. That's how come a lot of us don't see each other a lot, except little things like this, you know, but it's that bond. That guy actually, whether you wanted to think about it or not, could have saved your life or helped you save your own life. And guys would come out and you'd lose your board and they'd put it right underneath their toes and paddle it to you, you know. And first time, if you got air, you were wiping out. That did not exist. It was before there was surfing on the net. There was just plain surfing, you know. And first time when you wiped out, you would, the first 15, 20 yards, you swam as hard as you could to get that board before it was gone, you know. And that's just the way it was. And you had a bonding with all these people. It didn't make a difference if it was a girl or if it was a young guy or if it was an old fart like me. These people you knew were watermen and you could trust them in your lives. I remember Donna Slaughter, Paulette Just, surfing with them, bringing me back surfboards at different times, me bringing them back to them. Just that bond that surfing has. And when you're young, you know, you want to do the contest scene and all that stuff, which of course we did. So this Kanaka thing was formed. And I'm still friends with these Kanaka guys to this day. Are there any Kanaka guys in here tonight? I know there are. Yeah, there they are. Oh, Greg Keel. Good. They can tell some of the same stories I'm telling you. So we did a lot of different trips chasing waves, but we decided to make our club look real good, we decided to get 2 of the best young surfers around. And Pat McGee's sister used to always bring him out to Larry Law's stand, you know, to rent surfboards, and he was catching on pretty quick. And there was this other little blonde-headed guy that always walked on his toes, and that was Larry Beck. So we got 2 of these young hotshot boys to be in our surf club, and they really did well with us. We took them to the East Coast Surfing Championships, and they did quite well, and we had fun. In fact, on the way back from Virginia Beach, when we went through New Orleans, we left Larry and Pat in the motel room because we were going on Bourbon Street. We didn't feel we should take them with us, you know. So we put on a couple films. Here's one of them right here at Wind Seal. And you can see it says a door prize. I was such an idiot. I took a door out of my dad's garage, and that's exactly what we gave him. I mean, it was just stupid. So when Down South is open, if you guys have time and you look over here at this Surfboards Hawaii price list, Surfboards are running at about maybe 160, maybe 170 bucks, maybe 140. Think about it. When you fly someplace to now, you're paying way over that just to get your surfboard there for shipping, you know. And if you look down at the very bottom of it, it says my address and it says my telephone number. But if you look at it, there is no area code. There is no zip code. In fact, the letters on the phone are UL, which used to stand for Ulysses here in Corpus Christi. So this is a while back. So all these things, you had to be totally dedicated to surfing. You would be lucky if you got the high or low tide when on the weather forecast. It wasn't all these buoys that were telling you exactly where the waves were, when they're going to come and all that. You had to literally go out there and check them every day. Every day. Not only that, but you had to pay $1 toll and that gas to go out. So the little thing was, hey man, you got the gas? I got the toll. I got the toll. You got the gas? Let's go. You know, I mean, that was the thing that everybody said to one another. We used to put on contests with Kanaka. It was a good promo for the store, and I was into promoing surfboards to make some money. And so we put on these contests. John Price came down for one, and there were two contests we put on a year: the Texas Surfing Championships and the Down South Surf Carnival. How I picked up Carnival, I don't know, but it suited everything perfect. That was a February contest, and we usually had good waves. So there's a couple oddball things that happened as people got longer hair. I don't know if Steve Schuster's here tonight or not, but you could ask Steve. It was Mike Schuster, Steve Schuster, Joe Frazier, and Willie Moon. And they were going to surf out on to the West Coast. And so they're traveling with their surfboards on top of their car. Well, they're in West Texas, beautiful West Texas, surfing capital of the world. And they traveled through Pecos, Texas. And long hair and surfboards, they got pulled over and were escorted to the jail and were given free haircuts that day. Yeah. Let's see, another thing I'd like to talk about is the jetty boat. The jetty boat. When we first started using the jetty boat, it was 50 cents, and they'd give you a little safety pin that had a number on it, and you, like when you go in a swimming pool, you'd put that on your little swimming suit, and then it would still be there. Well, every time there might be 10 people pay over, and maybe 30, 40 people come back every time. The channel crossing, people just got in there and paddled right on over. My brother tells a story about him getting halfway across the channel. I can't make it, man. That shrimp boat's I can't make it. And Jackie Alban says, grab my leg, let's go. And paddle him the rest of the way across. Is that true, Mark? Okay. In fact, Mr. Cuttis right here in this scrapbook, if you care to look through, I have a thing from Precinct 7 really telling his parents about what him and Bob Watson had done. They had paddled across the channel, and of course, the boat captains cannot see them in that channel. They risk their life and limb, so let's don't do that, but I don't believe he got a ticket. One other story I'd like to tell was when the surf goes down, you have to find something to do. Now this involves Mike Gallagher again, bless his soul, and it involves Chuck Weil, and it involves Miles Compton. Now, Mustang Island in that area used to be a ranch that had cattle on it, and in the duck season you could hear them firing off from those blinds, shooting those ducks out there. So that means that there was some fence posts with barbed wire lining up on each side. Well, after we had a good tropical storm, a hurricane that dumped a lot of rain here, those ditches on either side would be maybe 3.5 feet to 2 inches deep. So Mike Gallagher's driving, Chuck Wild's riding shotgun. They have tied a ski rope to the Jeep. Miles has got 2 pairs of skis on, and he's skiing off the Port Aransas Road going northbound towards Port Aransas. Well, about this time, whizzing the other direction is the lawman. He makes a quick U-turn, comes back around. By this time, Chuck Wallace got out, got the ski rope, rolled it up, put it in the back of the Jeep, They're just kind of cars parked on the side of the road, Gallagher still behind the wheel. Miles is out in the water. But now he's standing on his skis. All you see him is about waist deep, just standing there. And so the constable, DPS, whoever it was, he comes up and says, well, boys, what's going on here? And what the hell are you doing out there? About time the ski tips come up. Whee! Well, that lawman decided to round them all up and take them in to the Port Aransas jail. So when they got there, yeah, they were there. They couldn't find a statute. You got to remember, this is probably 66, 67. They couldn't find a statute that said that it was illegal to water ski off the highway. So they conferred with the judge for just a little bit, and the judge goes, well, we got him. Look up your towing laws. If they do not have a red or orange flag at the end of the towing thing that they're towing, we got them. And so he said, well, Judge, the guy on the water skis had these red and orange shorts on, so that got him off that ticket. They didn't have to pay that ticket. One other thing that happened, and Rick Schwabe will be good on this, is when right after a hurricane, big surge comes in. It might have been Carla, I don't know what hurricane it was, Beulah. So they wouldn't allow us to go on the beach in Port Aransas. And when you can't see the surf, you don't know what it's like. So we went over there by those storage tanks by Lydia Ann Channel, and we paddled across Lydia Ann Channel and caught St. Joe's. But let me tell you, that paddle with all that water running out of there was a serious paddle. When we came around getting ready to get swept out into the channel, we had to come back to an eddy, and we all made it there, just barely made it. There must have been about, well, Pat McGee was with us too that day, thank God, because he was from Port Aransas. And we look out into the channel, and Rick Schwabe has a couple of his buddies. They're on a surfboard, and you know when a guy is a rookie surfing, how they usually lay back on the board. They were in the middle of the channel, just gone. Scotty, how far is the whistling buoy out there? Is Scotty still here?
Yeah, right here.
Do you know how long it is, Captain? The whistling buoy right off the apron?
1 second whistle.
I don't know. It's that whistling buoy they have right up. Anyway, these guys, that's where the coast... Mile and a half out in the Gulf, off the end of the jetties. So they picked them up on the Coast Guard boat, and there's about 12 to 15 of us standing on the St. Joe's jetties, and they just pulled us over there. So they got us and brought us back. That was the second close call we had about being arrested, but they did let us off on that. And Rick Schwabe can testify to that one.
You were on the outside.
So I went to school for a little bit, and back then they had a selective service thing, and I became 1A, which means I was going into the Army or the Marines within 30 to 60 days, and so I decided to join the Navy. Yeah, you can say that. And so I joined the Navy. That gave me a reprieve for 1 year, and then I served 2 years in the service. So when I got ready to go, I just gave the checkbook that I had to Mom, and I left, I think, Dwayne Johnson and Mike Gallagher to run the store, if I'm not mistaken. The only advice you could give somebody is just run it like it was your own, and I'm gone. I'm to Vietnam for 2 years doing my military service. So now, when I went to Hawaii, I went surfing in Hawaii. So that's what I really want to talk about, was surfing in Hawaii. And what blew my mind was I met Mike Hughes. He was working at the aquarium at Waikiki, and he picked me up, and we went surfing. Bing Surfboards had a board I could use from their shop there, and we went to Chun's Reef. You got to remember, I'm from Texas. I love this state, and I've always surfed the Gulf Coast, a couple of different places, Mexico, and a couple places. But you know, we surf in water that looks like a chocolate milkshake. So when I got to Hawaii, oh my God, urchin, starfish, holy. And we paddled out to Chun's Reef, and to get to Chun's Reef, you had to turn your board upside down with skeg up and paddle out that way. And then when the waves came, I could not read the wave. It was so clear, it just made it real difficult for me, you know, from being from the Gulf Coast. But that was my problem, not yours. So now, I've done 2 years in the Navy and I get back and I come in. Unbelievable, my store is still here. It is still here. I don't know anybody who's running it, but it is still here. And Philip Albright was running the shop back then. And so we took it from there, did surfing for a little while, didn't have any more contests after that. And you could see the writing on the wall that you were either going to get into clothing or you were going to have to sell surfboards like Bay Surf Shop did up in Houston, just sold a ton of them. You know, so I slowly crept into clothing, got more into clothing. And that was where the light was. I used to have this one guy come down and stay with me. And he had a company called California Surfing Products. And he would bring down Hansen surfboards, Bay Standard products, Nicky bikinis, Sundeck surfwear. That guy's name was Jim Jinks. And he would stay at the house. So maybe about 5-6 years ago, and now I'm watching TV, and now the dreams of caviar dreams and champagne wishes, and there's Jim Jinks sitting on a boat. He's the president of OP Clothing Company, and they're trying to make a comeback now since they deserted the surfing thing, but he was hanging around way back then. You know, I'm kind of glad that there aren't a bunch of young farts here tonight, just us old farts, because, you know, when you're first starting off in surfing, you want to be in that contest scene and show off all your stuff, and as you get older, it's like Nat Young said. He said that, you know, surfing is not a sport. It really is a religion. It really is, you know. There's a lot more to it. It's a good, wonderful thing. I have a couple friends of mine here tonight from the Inland Surf Park. Is that you back there, Ruben? Yeah, that's Ruben. He's a big wave rider from Puerto Rico. They call him the Lion of Puerto Rico. Where's Mike Maroney? Okay, Mike Maroney, when you do meet him, he made 162 sea rescues during Katrina and over 5,000 rescues overall when he was with the Army and the service. You know, let's face it, we are the stewards. We're the stewards of this planet, you know. We're the stewards for your breathing next human being right next to you. We need to take care of our planet totally, you know, and that doesn't mean just your fellow neighbor. It means everything, the plants, the whole shebang. So I would like to see a lot more people put the aloha spirit back into the surfing end of it. We can teach these young hotshots an awful lot of things with the aloha spirit. But you know what? Look, Texas has the best hospitality in the world. And when you put the aloha spirit with great Texas hospitality, what do you have? Aloha, y'all. Thank you.